Why do you have my face? Don't know.
The glass doesn't shatter. It just stops. One moment, a man in a charcoal suit is laughing, his champagne tilting toward his lips. The next, his hand freezes midair. The laugh dies in his throat, and the glass stays there, suspended, forgotten, as his eyes lock onto the center of the room. He is not the only one. Across the Han River Grand Hall, 260 people fall silent at almost the exact same second. Not because someone gave a signal, not because the music cut out. The music is still playing, a soft, expensive melody that now sounds completely wrong, like a lullaby hummed at a funeral. They go quiet because of two children standing 12 feet apart on a white marble floor. A boy in a black tuxedo, a girl in a white dress, and they look identical. If you're watching this for the first time, welcome. This channel is where real stories live. Stories that no screenplay could invent. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications, because what unfolds next is the kind of truth that takes years to surface and only seconds to destroy everything. Now, back to those children. People in that hall have seen extraordinary things. They have watched billion-dollar deals close over dinner. They have stood in rooms where wars were quietly ended and quietly started. They're not people who shock easily. But shock is not what holds them now. It is something older than shock. Something that lives below the skin and knows things the mind hasn't figured out yet. The boy tilts his head slightly to the left. The girl mirrors him. Perfectly. Not a beat late. Not a fraction off. Like she didn't choose to move, like her body simply answered his. A woman near the east corridor presses her fingers to her mouth. A man 2 tables back slowly sets down his fork. And somewhere near the main entrance, a security guard reaches for his earpiece but doesn't speak into it. He just watches, because even he doesn't know what protocol covers this. The boy's name is Duera, 6 years old, son of the most powerful man in this room, possibly in this country. He has been brought to this gala the way expensive art is brought to an auction. Not because he asked to come, because his presence sent a message. He doesn't understand any of that yet. What he understands right now, in the wordless way that children understand things that adults have to be told, is that something about the girl across the marble floor feels familiar. Not like a memory. Deeper than that. Like a sound you've heard before you were born. The girl doesn't move toward him. She doesn't move away. She stands with her hands loose at her sides and her eyes, dark, wide, completely steady, fixed on his face. On every feature of his face. As though she is taking an inventory. The hall holds its breath. 2 children, 1 marble floor, 260 people who suddenly feel like they are intruding on something they were never supposed to see. And then, from somewhere near the back of the room, a man slowly lowers his glass. Not quickly, not with panic, with the kind of deliberate, measured stillness that men like him have perfected over decades of keeping their faces clean in rooms full of people reading them for weakness. But his eyes give him away. Because Du Haejin, billionaire, power broker, a man whose name alone opens borders and closes conversations, is looking at those 2 children with an expression that has no place on his face. He looks like a man watching a buried secret claw its way out of the ground. The resemblance wasn't what froze the room. It was who noticed it first, and what recognizing it cost him. Du Haejin does not panic. He never panics. That is not arrogance. It is architecture. He built himself that way, stone by stone, over 43 years of watching what fear does to men who let it show. Fear makes men sloppy. Sloppy men lose everything. He learned that at 19, sitting across from his father in a room that smelled like cigarettes and old money, watching the old man beg for mercy from men who had already made their decision. He told himself that night, never, never in public, never in front of people who could use it. And for 24 years, he kept that promise. Until now, his jaw is set. His posture is flawless. To anyone watching from a distance, Du Haejin looks like a man who has simply paused mid-thought. Calm, composed, untouchable as always. But his right hand, the one holding the glass, has tightened. The knuckles are pale. His mind is not in this room anymore. It is 7 years back. A hospital corridor in Incheon. 2 in the morning. Rain hitting windows so hard it sounded like static. A nurse with tired eyes and a clipboard. A doctor who wouldn't meet his gaze. And a decision. Not an accident. Not a misunderstanding. A cold, deliberate, calculated decision. Made in under 4 minutes. He remembers the weight of the pen in his hand. He remembers setting it down on the desk and walking out into that rain without looking back. He told himself it was necessary. He told himself that the kind of life he was building required sacrifices that ordinary men didn't have the stomach for. He told himself that children are resilient, that they adapt, that they never need to know. He told himself a lot of things that night. In this hall, on this marble floor, the boy tilts his head again. The girl mirrors him again. And every single thing Du Haejin told himself 7 years ago turns to ash. Because there is no explaining this away. Not in a room full of people with phones and sharp eyes and sharper mouths. Not with 2 children who share a face so precisely that the human brain keeps trying to find the trick, the angle, the lighting, and keeps failing. He had seen that face before, just not like this. Not standing upright, breathing, looking back at him from across a room where there was nowhere to hide. A man to his left leans toward a woman and whispers something. She turns slowly and looks at the children, then at Haejin, then back at the children. Her expression shifts through confusion, calculation, and then something that looks dangerously close to understanding. Haejin clocks it. He clocks all of it. His mind runs the math in the time it takes most people to blink. 43 people in his direct line of sight. 14 of them are looking at him. 6 of those 14 have already made the connection between him, Du Era, and the girl in white. 2 of those 6 have the kind of reach that could turn this moment into a headline by sunrise. He needs to move. Carefully. Now, he sets his glass down on the nearest surface. No sound, no rush, and straightens his jacket. Starts to walk toward Du Era with the measured pace of a father simply checking on his son at a crowded event. Normal. Parental. Nothing to see. But his mind is already 3 steps ahead. Shutting corridors. Running contingencies, calculating exactly how much damage has already been done and how much more is coming. Because one of those children wasn't supposed to exist. Not here, not in this city, not in this room, not standing 12 feet from his son, wearing his son's face like a mirror that the world had cracked open and held up without warning. Someone had failed him, and someone was going to answer for it. Kim Onyeka has spent the last 4 years learning how to disappear in plain sight. It is not a skill she was born with. It is something Seoul taught her quietly, firmly, the way cold weather teaches the body to conserve heat. You pull inward. You take up less space. You make yourself easy to overlook, because being overlooked is the only kind of safety available to a woman in her position. She's good at it now. Tonight she stands near the service corridor at the far left edge of the Han River Grand Hall, dressed in the kind of dress that was expensive enough to get her through the door and plain enough not to invite conversation. She has a glass of water, not champagne, and she holds it the way props are held, for the hands, not the thirst. Beside her, in a white dress with small pearl buttons running up the back, stands Zara, 6 years old, her daughter, her whole life folded into one small, serious person. Kim had not planned to bring her tonight. The original arrangement was a sitter, a woman from her building who watched Zara on late nights when Kim took catering shifts. But the sitter's mother had taken ill 3 hours before the event, and there was no time to find someone else, and the client coordinator had said it was fine. Children of staff sometimes came along. Just keep her out of the way. Keep her out of the way. Kim almost laughs now, standing here, because that instruction has just become the most impossible thing she has ever been asked to do. Across the hall, Zara has walked forward. Not far, maybe 8 feet, just enough to step out of the shadow of the corridor and into the edge of the light. Kim doesn't know when it happened. One moment Zara was beside her, the next she was simply drawn, like something had called her name in a frequency only she could hear. And now she is standing on that marble floor, facing a boy she has never met. Kim's hand tightens around her water glass. Not because she is confused, because she is not confused at all. That is the part that should frighten anyone watching her face right now. A confused mother would be moving forward, calling her daughter's name, pulling her back. Kim is standing very still. Her jaw is locked. Her breathing has gone shallow and controlled in the way that breathing goes when the body is managing something that the mind is not ready to name. She knows that boy's face. She has known it for 6 years. She has spent 6 years building a life in this city that depended entirely on never being in the same room as that face. She had been careful, methodical. She had chosen jobs that kept her in certain districts. She had avoided certain events. She had learned, very early, which name not to say out loud and which buildings not to enter. And then a sitter's mother got sick on a Thursday night. And now Zara is standing 12 feet from a boy whose existence means everything Kim has protected is about to come apart. She had spent years pretending that one night never happened. The hospital, the paperwork, the man in the dark coat who had spoken to her in careful, quiet sentences that sounded like reassurance and were actually a warning. She had signed because she was 22 years old and alone in a foreign country, and the alternative had been presented to her in terms she didn't have the resources to fight. She had told herself it was over. She had told herself Zara was safe, that the distance was enough. That 6 years of silence was proof that whatever that man had wanted, he had gotten it, and they were free, until the past walked into the room wearing a child's face. Zara had not looked back at her mother, not once. Her eyes were fixed forward on the boy in the black tuxedo, with an expression that Kim had never seen on her daughter's face before. Not fear, not confusion, recognition. Era doesn't understand why he walked toward her. He will think about that later, much later, in a different kind of room, with different kinds of questions pressing in from every direction, and he still won't have an answer. There was no thought behind it, no decision. His feet simply moved the way they move toward food when he is hungry or toward sound when something catches his ear. He moved because something pulled, and now he is standing close enough to see that her eyelashes are the same length as his. He noticed that detail first, before the nose, before the jaw, before the shape of the ears that match his own so precisely that his brain keeps stuttering on it like a word he can't pronounce. The eyelashes. Isn't that a strange thing to notice first? The girl, he doesn't know her name yet, has not looked away from him once since he stepped into the open floor. She is studying him the same way he is studying her, piece by piece, feature by feature. She is 6 years old, the same as him, and she is doing what all 6-year-olds do when they encounter something they cannot file into an existing category. She is simply looking. Children don't manage situations. They just meet them. The hall around them has become a different place. The temperature has shifted. The music is still going. Somewhat the sound system hasn't gotten the message yet. And the disconnect between that soft, floating melody and the rigid, electric silence of 200 people holding still is almost physical. Like pressure. Like the moment before a storm breaks when the air gets thick and the birds go quiet. Era tilts his head. She mirrors him. He tilts it the other way. She follows. It isn't mimicry. He can tell the difference. He has a cousin who mimics people on purpose, and it always has a half-second delay, a self-conscious quality, a performance. This is not that. This is the way his own reflection moves. Without lag. Without choice. Like his body has a counterpart in the world, and she's standing right in front of him. A woman somewhere behind him makes a sound. Not a word. Just a sound. The kind that escapes before a person can catch it. Era doesn't turn around. He can't make himself look away. Neither of them speaks for a long time. Long enough that the silence between them becomes its own kind of conversation. Something is being said by both of them, without either of them having the vocabulary for it yet. The body knows things. The body carries information that the mind has never been handed. And right now, two small bodies are standing on a marble floor in Seoul, talking in a language that has no words. Neither of them understood exactly why they couldn't walk away, but neither one wanted to. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again, and then she says it, quietly, carefully, like she has been thinking about it for the full length of that silence. And this is the only sentence that came out making sense. Why do you have my face? The words land without echo. They don't bounce off the marble or float toward the ceiling. They sink straight down, the way heavy things sink, fast, direct, with the kind of finality that changes the shape of a room the moment they hit. Era stares at her. His mouth is slightly open. Somewhere behind him, very far away, a glass hits the floor. The glass shatters, and no one moves to clean it up. That is the detail that tells you everything has changed. In a room like this, where the staff outnumber the guests and a spilled drop of champagne is attended to within seconds, the fact that broken glass simply lies on a marble floor, ignored, unremarked upon, is its own kind of signal. The room has stopped functioning as a room. It has become something else. An audience. A held breath. A collective body frozen at the exact moment before a verdict is read. Phones that have been discreetly raised are now less discreet. A man near the third table along the east wall has angled his body sideways, his screen dark but his thumb positioned. A woman in red has stopped pretending to look elsewhere. Two men near the bar have turned fully, abandoning the pretense, and are watching the children with the open, uncalculated stare of people who have decided that whatever social rule required them to look away no longer applies. Hagen sees all of it. He is 15 feet away and closing the distance in the way that men close distance when they need to appear unhurried while moving at maximum speed. Every step is even. His face is composed. His eyes are doing the real work, scanning, calculating, assigning threat levels to each face in his peripheral range. The two men near the bar. High priority, both connected to media. The woman in red. Mid-level. Influential social circles, but no direct press access. The man with the phone. Unknown, which makes him the most dangerous of all. Hagen has handled rooms before. Rooms where the wrong word in the wrong ear could collapse a company, and a career start something much worse. He knows how to move through a crowd and redistribute attention. He knows how to make a scene smaller by the way he enters it. Calm, deliberate, the most powerful person present treating it as a minor administrative issue. But this is not a boardroom, and those are not business rivals. They are two children, standing on white marble, and no amount of composure in his face changes what every single pair of eyes in this room is registering. That these two children share something that has no business being shared between strangers. Security is already in motion. He can see them at his periphery, two of his personal team angling toward the floor from separate directions, moving with the trained ease of people who anticipate rather than react. Good. That is what he pays for. The room didn't explode. It tightened. Every conversation dead. Every face turned. Every body leaning a half-degree forward. The unconscious posture of human beings catching the scent of something enormous. And then a movement from the left side of the hall, from the service corridor, from the shadows where he had not been looking, stops him. A woman steps forward. She's not a guest. He can tell immediately. The dress is good, but not gala standard. The shoes are wrong. She has the posture of someone who has spent a long time making herself small, and she's currently undoing all of that work in a single motion. Shoulders back, chin up, crossing the floor with the kind of forward momentum that security teams are trained to intercept. His team moves toward her. She doesn't slow down. And then, 3 feet from Era, 2 feet from Zara, in the dead center of a room that is holding itself absolutely still, she stops and her voice comes out low and clear and utterly without hesitation. Don't touch her. Nobody moves. Not the security team. Not the guests. Not Era. Not Zara. Not Hagen. Because it wasn't just the words. It was the way she said them. Not as a plea, not as a question, not as the frightened protest of a woman who knows she is outmatched. It came out like a line drawn, like a door slammed, like someone who has been afraid for a very long time and has just, in this exact moment, run out of fear. The room gasped. Not loudly, not all at once, but in the way a room gasps when the balance of power shifts and everyone feels it before they understand it. Hagen had walked into this hall as the most powerful person present, and somehow, in under 30 seconds, a woman in the wrong shoes had taken that from him, because she had something he didn't. And every person in that room, even the ones who didn't know the story yet, could feel it pressing against the surface of the moment, ready to break through. She knew the truth, and she was no longer afraid of what telling it would cost her. Nobody in that room breathes. Not fully. Not the way people breathe when they feel safe. They're taking in air in small, careful amounts. The kind of shallow breathing that happens when the body understands that something irreversible is occurring and instinctively tries to take up less space inside it. Kim stands her ground. Her feet are planted on that marble floor like she grew there. Like this is the place she has been walking toward for 6 years without knowing it. Her eyes are not on the security team closing in from both sides. They're not on the guests frozen at their tables. They're not on the phones that are no longer even pretending to be discreet. Her eyes are on Do Haejin, only on Do Haejin, and he is looking back at her with the face of a man who has just opened a door he was certain he had sealed shut and found a room on the other side fully lit, fully furnished, and waiting for him. He knows her. The recognition moves across his face so fast that most people in the room miss it. A flicker, a tightening around the eyes. Gone in under a second, replaced immediately by the polished, unreadable expression he wears the way other men wear armor. But Kim catches it. She has been watching for it for 6 years. One of his security men, broad, dark suit, earpiece, steps up beside her and reaches for her arm. Not rough. Professional. The kind of grip that is designed to redirect without escalating. Ma'am, I need you to... I said don't touch her. The grip loosens. Not because the guard decided to listen. Because something in the air of that room shifted the moment her voice came out a second time. Harder now, carrying underneath it the weight of everything she has not said for 6 long years. And even a trained man felt it. Zara has not moved. She is standing exactly where she stood when the glass broke, and she is watching her mother with an expression that is too old for her face. Children who have grown up close to their mother's fear develop a kind of radar. They learn the difference between the fear that means run and the fear that means stay very still and let her handle it. Zara is staying very still. Du Era is watching Kim too. His small face is arranged in an expression of complete concentration, the way children look when adults around them are speaking in a language they almost understand. Haejin takes 3 steps forward, even, measured. He stops at a distance that is close enough to be a conversation and far enough to still look composed. His voice, when it comes, is low, controlled, not a single rough edge. This isn't the place for words. Simple, quiet, and underneath them, an entire architecture of threat. And Kim's jaw tightens. Then you should have thought about that 7 years ago. Something moves through Haejin's face. Fast, deep. He kills it immediately, but the damage is done. 3 people standing close enough caught it, and in a room full of people paid to read other people, 3 witnesses is 3 too many. Kim's voice drops lower, not softer, lower, the way a voice drops when it is done performing calm, and is now simply telling the truth. That child, she begins, and her eyes cut once, briefly. To Zara, she doesn't belong to... Enough. The word comes out like a door slamming. No volume, no raised pitch, just a single syllable dropped with such absolute authority that it physically interrupts the air. The hall goes so quiet that the music, still playing, still floating absurdly above all of this, becomes almost unbearable. Haejin doesn't look at the guests. He doesn't look at the phones. He doesn't look at Zara. He keeps his eyes on Kim, and in them is a message that requires no translation. Not here, not now, not in front of 200 people, not if you understand what I am capable of and what you are risking. Kim reads the message. She reads it completely, and for one long, terrible second, she almost stops, because the fear is still there. It never left. She built a whole life on top of it, but it never left, and right now is pressing up through the floor of everything she constructed and reminding her exactly what this man is and exactly what she is standing across from. He didn't deny it. He stopped it. And in a room full of witnesses, the difference between those 2 things was the most important distance in the world. Because a man who denies something doesn't believe he can lose. A man who stops something knows exactly what the truth contains and what it would cost him if it finished leaving her mouth. Security tightened on both sides of her. Kim looked at Zara one more time, and then she looked back at Haejin, and something in her face settled into a stillness that was not defeat, was not surrender, was not the silence of a woman who had been silenced. It was the stillness of a woman saving something for later. 7 years ago, it was raining in Incheon. Not a gentle rain, the kind that comes in sideways off the yellow sea and hits windows like it has a grievance. The kind that makes the world outside a hospital feel like it has been erased. No city, no street, no direction home, just water and glass and the sound of fluorescent lights humming in a corridor at 2 in the morning. Kim was 22 years old. She had been in South Korea for 11 months, long enough to lose the jet lag, not long enough to stop feeling like a guest in someone else's country. She had come on a work visa arranged through a staffing agency that a cousin back in Lagos had recommended, and the work was hospital administration, filing, translating for other West African patients when the need arose, the invisible labor that institutions require and rarely acknowledge. She was good at the work. She was good at being invisible. That night, she was finishing a late shift when a man in a dark coat found her in the corridor outside records. He was not a doctor. He was not hospital staff. He had the particular quality of stillness that belongs to men who are paid to be present in places they are not officially present. He knew her name. That was the first thing that frightened her. He sat across from her in a small consultation room, and he spoke for 11 minutes. She counted. She counted because her mind needed something to hold onto while his words rearranged the shape of everything she thought she understood about the situation she was in. She was pregnant. 7 months. Alone. No family within 6,000 miles. Her visa was tied to her employment, and her employment was suddenly, quietly, in question. He made sure she understood that without ever saying it directly. He was careful. Everything he said was careful. The offer, when it came, was wrapped in language that made it sound like a solution. A couple, he never named them, had experienced a tragedy. A pregnancy lost late. A grief that had no public expression available to people of their particular prominence. There was a child that needed a future. There was a situation that needed resolution. There was money, substantial, life-changing, deposited in a manner that left no trail, and there was paperwork that would give her daughter a life she could not otherwise provide. He never said the word switch. He never said the word buy. He never said anything that a recording could have used against him. But by the time those 11 minutes were over, Kim understood exactly what was being asked. She understood what she would receive. And she understood what would happen if she refused, not in terms of violence, nothing so direct as that. In terms of visas, employment, the particular vulnerability of a young woman alone in a foreign country who has not yet learned which walls to lean on. It wasn't a mistake. It was a decision made by a man with resources, a man with reach, and a man who had looked at a 22-year-old immigrant with no support system and correctly calculated how much pressure it would take. She signed. She has never forgiven herself for it. But here is what Du Haejin, in all his calculation, in all his careful construction of that offer and its delivery, failed to account for. Kim Onika was 22 years old and frightened, and alone the night she signed those papers. She is not 22 anymore, and she kept copies of everything. Not because she planned this moment, not because she had a strategy. She kept them the way people keep things they cannot bring themselves to destroy, in a sealed envelope, at the back of a drawer, in an apartment in a district where his people did not look. She kept them because throwing them away felt like agreeing that what happened was something she deserved to move on from. She never agreed to that. Back in the gala, as security pushes in on both sides, and the guests shift and whisper, and the music finally, mercifully, stops, Haejin moves to have her removed. Quietly, efficiently, the way he removes all complications. And as the security team takes her arms, Kim turns back toward him one last time. Not resisting, not fighting, just making sure he sees her face. Making sure he understands that she is not the woman from that corridor anymore. And someone very powerful had made sure the truth stayed buried. But even the most powerful man in a room cannot bury something that the woman in front of him is still carrying in her hands. Du Era watches his father give the order. He doesn't hear the words. They're spoken low, in the clipped shorthand that his father uses with the security team, a language Du Era has grown up hearing without ever being taught to translate. But he knows what an order looks like on his father's face. He has seen enough times. The slight drop of the chin, the flicker of eye contact that lasts exactly as long as it needs to and not a second longer. He knows. What he doesn't know is why. He is 6 years old, and the most reasonable mind he has access to is his own, and his own mind is currently presenting him with a very simple question that it cannot answer. Why does that girl have his face? Not similar. His face. The exact same eyes, the exact same jaw, the exact same way the left corner of the mouth sits slightly lower than the right when the lips are resting. He knows his face. He has studied it in mirrors the way all children study themselves, with a mix of curiosity and something close to ownership, a private catalog of all the things that belong to him and only him. Except they don't only belong to him. They're standing across the floor on someone else's face, and no one. Not his father, not the security team, not a single adult in this enormous hall is explaining why. The girl, Zara, though he doesn't know her name yet, is being moved toward the side exit with her mother. Security on both sides. Hands not rough, but firm. Her small feet move because they have to, not because she wants them to. She is looking back over her shoulder. At him. At his face. He lifts his hand, just slightly without deciding to. A small motion. Almost a wave. She sees it. Something in her eyes. Something complicated and too large for a 6-year-old's face. Shifts. And then she is through the door, and it closes. Du Era stands on the marble floor. Around him, the hall is beginning its recovery. The practiced, self-conscious return to normalcy that happens in rooms full of powerful people when something has occurred that no one has the framework to address out loud. Conversations restart. Glasses are lifted. A low murmur of sound fills the space where silence was. Nobody approaches him. He is the child of the most powerful man in the room. People do not approach without invitation. His father appears at his shoulder. That sudden, quiet arrival that Du Era has always associated with his father, the way he moves through space without announcing himself, the way he is simply not there and then is. A hand settles on Du Era's shoulder. Come. One word. Du Era doesn't move immediately. He looks at the side door. Still closed. The girl on the other side of it. The girl with his face. Dad. Come, Era. Dad. His voice is small, but it doesn't waver. Why does she look like me? Silence. Not the brief, organizing silence of a parent deciding how to explain something complex to a child. A longer silence. A heavier silence. The kind that has weight and temperature and that Du Era, even at 6, can feel pressing against the back of his neck. His father's hand tightens on his shoulder. Just once. Just slightly. Power protects lies. It builds walls around them and employs people to guard the walls and pays enough money to make the walls feel permanent. It had protected this particular lie for 6 years across 2 countries and through every contingency that a careful man could engineer. But Du Era is not a contingency. He is a child who just looked into a mirror and found someone else standing inside it. And when a child asks a question with that kind of plainness, not accusatory, not strategic, just genuinely, completely bewildered, there's no wall in the world built high enough to make the silence that follows feel like anything other than an answer. Du Haejin says nothing, and his silence said everything. Kim is through the side exit and into a service corridor when she stops walking. The security team doesn't expect it. They are built for resistance, pushing, pulling, someone who fights the direction of travel. They're not built for a woman who simply plants her feet on a concrete floor and becomes immovable. Zara presses against her side. Kim's arm comes around her daughter's shoulders. The 2 guards exchange a look. Ma'am, you need to let me speak. Her voice is low, controlled. Nothing about it is asking permission. That is not. Go get him. A pause. Go get Du Haejin and bring him to this corridor. Tell him Kim Onika has something he needs to hear before she says it in a room full of cameras. The name lands differently than she intended. Not because the guards know the story, but because they know their employer and they know the particular category of information that requires direct escalation. The older of the two steps back, touches his earpiece, murmurs. 30 seconds pass. The door opens. Do Haejin steps into the corridor alone. He fills the narrow space the way he fills every space. Completely, immediately, without effort. The door closes behind him. The two guards position themselves at the far end of the corridor, out of earshot but within eye line. For people in a service hallway. 2 adults. 2 children. And a truth that has been waiting 6 years for a room small enough to contain it. Haejin looks at Kim, then at Zara, then back at Kim. His face is neutral. Professionally, expensively neutral. You made a mistake coming here tonight. I didn't come here tonight. Her voice is level. I was already here. You walked into the same room. He says nothing. You thought no one would find out. She takes a breath. You paid for silence. You manufactured distance. You put an ocean between the paperwork and the people involved. And it worked. She pauses. For a while. His expression doesn't change. It worked because I let it work. Because I was scared and I was alone and I didn't have what I needed to fight you. Another breath. Steadier. I'm not any of those things anymore. Haejin's voice comes out quiet and final. Whatever you think you have. I have the original documents. She watches his face. I have the signatures. I have the name of the doctor who was paid to file the amended birth record. I have dates, amounts, and a copy of every transfer made to the account that no longer exists but did in February of 2018. She lets that sit. I've had them for 6 years. I was never going to use them. I just needed to know they existed. The corridor is very quiet. But you made one mistake. Haejin's jaw is tight. You switched the wrong child. The words land without decoration. No drama in the delivery. No satisfaction. Just a woman stating a fact that has been true for 6 years and is only now being said out loud. Kim looks down at Zara, then across at the door behind which, somewhere in that hall, a small boy in a black tuxedo is standing with his father's silence for company. Zara was never supposed to be part of this. Your arrangement was for the other child. The one born 2 floors up, same night, same hospital. But someone made an error in the paperwork, or someone was in a hurry, or someone didn't check closely enough, and the wrong baby was moved. She looks back at Haejin, which means the child you raised as your heir, the one you built your entire succession around, may not be the one you paid for. It wasn't the switch that doomed him. It was who he had chosen to replace. The corridor holds the silence like a closed fist. Do Haejin has not moved. He is standing in the same position he took when he entered, back straight, weight evenly distributed, hands at his sides, but something has changed in the space between his eyes that no amount of posture can correct. It is the look of a man whose architecture has just been shown a crack he did not know existed and cannot calculate the full depth of from where he stands. He built an empire on a foundation, and the foundation just shifted. Behind the door, somewhere in the gala hall, Du Era is waiting. 6 years old, black tuxedo, a face that belongs, apparently, undeniably, without any version of this story in which it doesn't, to someone who should not exist in his orbit. Kim does not push further. She has given him what she came here with. She is watching his face the way you watch a building after the first tremor, not to see it fall, but to understand what it was made of. Zara is still pressed against her mother's side. She has been quiet through all of it. Children who have learned to be still in adult storms know that the most important thing you can do sometimes is stay close and breathe. But now she looks up, not at Haejin, not at the guards at the end of the corridor, at the door, at the space where the boy in the black tuxedo is on the other side of the wall. And she says, quietly, to no one in particular, in a matter-of-fact voice of a child who has processed something enormous and arrived at the only question that actually matters. If you're me, then who do they give my life to? Nobody answers. Not because they don't understand the question, because they understand it completely, and the answer, the full, true, unburied answer, would require every person in this corridor to reckon with what they did, what they allowed, and what 6 years of careful silence actually cost. Du Haejin looks at Zara. For the first time since he walked into this hallway, his face does something unplanned, something uncontrolled. For just a moment, less than a second, something moves behind his eyes that is not calculation, not threat assessment, not contingency management. It is recognition, the deep animal kind, the kind that bypasses everything a man has built and goes straight to what he was before he built any of it. He kills it fast, faster than he has ever killed anything. But Kim sees it, and understanding exactly what it means, she pulls Zara gently closer and looks at the man across from her with the steady, ancient patience of someone who has been waiting a very long time and has just confirmed that the waiting is finally over. Because here is what power cannot do. It cannot reach into two small bodies and remove the shared blueprint written there. It cannot erase the way a boy and a girl tilted their heads in perfect unison on a marble floor in front of 200 witnesses. It cannot unpublish the memory from every phone in that hall, every pair of eyes, every whisper that is already traveling outward through Seoul and will keep traveling. Truth is not always loud. Sometimes it stands in a service corridor in a white dress and asks a single question in a small voice, and the question is so precise, so clean, so completely unanswerable that it does more damage than any document ever could. In that moment, no one knew who belonged where anymore. Hajan would spend money. He would spend resources. He would call lawyers before sunrise and engineers of silence, and people whose entire professional existence was built around making moments like this one disappear. Some of it would work. Some of it always works when you have what he has. But not all of it. Not this time. Because this time, there were children involved. Children who were old enough to remember, young enough to tell the truth without understanding why they shouldn't, and connected in a way that no legal document and no financial instrument and no carefully managed distance could sever. The body remembers what the mind was never told. And two bodies, standing on opposite sides of a door in a building full of people with phones and memories, had already told each other everything. And Kim looked down at Zara one more time, at the girl she had protected and carried and built a life around. The girl whose existence was the one good thing she had taken out of the worst night of her life. Then she looked at the door, then at Hajan. "We're not going to disappear again," she said. Not a threat, not a declaration, just a fact. The kind of fact that arrives after everything else has already been decided. The corridor light flickered once, and the truth didn't just settle, it began its work. Quietly, permanently, the way real things do. That is the story of two children who stood on a marble floor and, without a single word of planning, undid 6 years of the most careful deception that money could maintain. If this story moved you, if Zara's question is still sitting somewhere in your chest, drop the word Zara in the comments right now. Let's see how many people this reached. And if you believe that truth has a way of finding the light, no matter how deep it's buried, share this with one person today. Because stories like this one don't just entertain. They remind us what happens when the people with the least power tell the truth to the people with the most. This channel exists for stories that stay with you. Stories built on real human weight, love, betrayal, identity, consequence. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now and turn on your notifications. Every story we release is built to make you feel something real. You do not want to miss what is coming next. And before you go, tell us in the comments, do you think Kim made the right choice by staying silent for 6 years? Or should she have fought back the moment it happened? There is no wrong answer. This is your space to think out loud. We will see you in the next story.